Welcome back to another video. We will be going over adjustments and how they apply to Photoshop and interior design. So at this point, we are pretty well experienced with masking and understand really how layers work and just Photoshop holistically and how to put together a decent file. So adjustments is where it's super important that we pay attention because this is really what makes or break files. So if you think about what we've done previously, you may have noticed that some of the items, particularly in the coffee shop project, may have felt a little fake or out of place. And that's because we need adjustments. And so adjustments will change the brightness, contrast, hue, saturation, really you name it. I have it all detailed in the show notes down below on the Canvas page. So you can see what every single one does. I have literally everyone listed with its function. So that is why those are so important, because it makes things look real. So we apply them to our masked items and we can change the brightness, contrast, etc., just so they feel a little more natural in the space they occupy. And then just one more thing we'll get to next week is we'll be working on shadows. So I'll teach you, you may already know drop shadows by now, but I'll teach you actual shadows next week, and that'll set us up nicely for our midterm. Okay, so now that we have that, if you don't mind opening up your Photoshop file to follow along, I have it listed on this module page, and I'm going to walk you through just very quickly yet slowly all these adjustments and how they work. So I started with a masked image. You don't need to mask it, but I'm just pretending as if this is part of a project. And in this class, we always mask. So I masked that. So I have this little light fixture here. I've actually haven't actually used this product for a client, but it's been on lots of mood boards. I just thought it was fun. I would include it. So I want to select my layer. Okay, I have that selected, and I want to go up here and make sure I have adjustments clicked. Okay, and if you don't see those there, you can also go down. I've always called it the half moon. But this is another option. I actually prefer adjustments up here because it has the little logos next to it. And those are really helpful for me because they actually do a good job of explaining what's going on. Okay, so I want to show you a few things. So I clicked hue and saturation, and I can start to change how things look here. Okay, and you can even start to play around with different settings like colorize. It's really totally up to you on how you want to do that. But one thing I want to show you, and this is super important, so please make sure you're paying attention here. This is the most important thing, one of the most important things you'll learn in this class, besides masking. So do you notice here how that's changing my whole entire image? I don't want that, not at all. It's changing my whole image. I just want the masked portion. So we want to apply what we call a clipping mask. So do you see how this area is masked? We want this adjustment to literally clip to the mask. And I'll show you, it literally clips. And we want to do that because we don't want it affecting the whole image. We don't want this to look like that. I want to make this a little darker without making the whole background black. So I just simply right click here and I go down and hit create clipping mask. Okay, very important. You see this little logo right here, the down arrow? That means that it's clipped to our mask. So that's exactly what we want. Okay, let's adjust and see how that works now. Do you see how it doesn't affect my whole background? It's exactly what I want. Believe it or not, I'll show you more adjustments, but this is really it. We can stack adjustments on top of each other. So let me make this, I don't want to do the hue and saturation. Actually, you know what I do? I'm just going to increase the saturation a bit for the color, and I'm going to stack more adjustments on top of this. Okay, let's see, I want to increase my contrast. All right. And guess what? I'm going to create a clipping mask right there. And a few other things. So hue, saturation, brightness, curves. So curves will take care of the midtones, shadows, and highlights. And you can alter those by a few ways. So you can alter the darker shadows like this by moving that around, the lighter tones here, and then you can also drag and click in here to take care of those midtones. So I usually don't use this. This is pretty advanced. Well, it's not too advanced, but someone in our role in interior design, we probably would just stick with the contrast and brightness, honestly. We don't get too into the weeds on editing photos. That's good to know. And then levels is essentially the same thing. It's just a little more simple. So we have our midtones here that I can adjust, my highlights, and then my shadows. And so you can change the brightness and contrast on levels, curves, brightness/contrast. It's really up to you. Okay, and I can do color balance as well. And you can see here that these colors are literally opposite of the color wheel, and that's why it's called balance, because they're literally pulling each other in different directions. And that's if you have some weird colors going on, you can figure out my image is too warm, my image is too cool. Okay, let me increase the red. Again, my opinion, not so applicable to interior designers, but very good to know. Okay, let's keep going up and just going through this. So black and white will do that. I'm actually going to undo that. And while I'm there, I'm just going to do best practice here and shift click those, and I'm going to create my clipping mask. Okay, and so I'm over just about 6 minutes. I will wrap up quickly because I like to keep these short and sweet. So we're about halfway through these options, and I'll go through and make sure we understand all of them. Okay, exposure. So this is just like a camera. So exposure controls the amount of light that's hitting the aperture. So you can see here, if I increase that exposure, it's increasing the brightness of the image. A few other things we have here is I have vibrance, and that is taking care of just the colorful tones within the image. And a few other things going on here. I have selective color, and right here I can set it to a certain preset, and it will take care of different tones within the image. I don't really use this too much. It's not something I have too much experience with, but if you're interested in doing it, you're more than welcome to try it out. I can't get it to work too much. I can see a tiny bit of a difference, but this isn't something that we need to worry about too much. Okay. In addition, let's go down and see what else we're playing with. Gradient map, this is one that you will use in future projects. I want to show you how awesome it is. So I just hit the gradient map, and I can go click a gradient, and it applies that. Keep in mind, I need to create my clipping mask, but that's pretty neat. And to simply edit that, just click on this logo here. We can go back and let's find something with more contrast. And let's maybe reverse that so I can see my image a little better. And then I can even go in here and I can start to edit things. All right, a few other things. So I have channel mixer, color lookup, invert. Those are more photography related. We will not address those in this class. That's really kind of out of our scope, but just give you a sneak peek at it. It's just more of the color channel. So red, green, and blue makes up the RGB, and you can continue to play with that if you want. Not required, but something if you're interested in doing, you definitely could. There's color lookup as well. That's very technical and more related to photography. And then threshold here too, if you're trying to make your image black and white. This is helpful if you're working on a logo or something. I'm actually going to delete that in color lookup. And finally, posterize. This is a fun one. So posterize will change the amount of values that are in your photo. So if you see me scroll down, I now have 10 values, 6 values, 4 values. This can be fun. It looks a little pixelated here, but this can add a nice, almost cartoony illustration look to your work. So it's something that I would encourage you to play around with if you enjoy. So just to recap, I'm going to actually delete all of these and show you what is the most important. So yes, I went through a lot of these, and a lot of these don't apply to us, but ones that I want you to think about are hue and saturation. Okay, think about if you're in a dark room here and you Photoshop this into a dark, moody restaurant, you might want to desaturate it a bit and decrease the lightness and make sure to create that clipping mask, and that will start to blend in. You can even go into brightness and contrast and create that clipping mask there as well, and just turn down that brightness. So think about how it is in relation to what is surrounding it. That is incredibly important, so make sure to remember that, and as always, make sure to add that clipping mask. Okay, I will see you in transformations next. Thanks.